Okay, so this is our first lecture where we're actually getting into some more specifics about plants beyond the cells. And I'm sure you had cell biology where you talked about plants and differences between plant cells and animals. But now we're going to talk about what cells form, and that is specialized congregations of cells with a specific purpose, which is a tissue. Now there are 4 different major groups of organs made of different tissues, and those are roots, stems, leaves, and flowers. Okay, and this anatomy you are very familiar with. However, when you get into tissues, these things you're probably less familiar with. So our different type of tissues include 2 subtypes: meristemic tissues, which are apical, lateral, and intercalary meristems, and then complex tissues, which are composed of xylem, phloem, epidermis, periderm, and secretory cells and tissues. And we'll go through each of these individually, starting with the meristemic tissues. So a meristem is an area where you have constant mitosis occurring. So you have constant splitting of cells or growth. So that's how growth occurs, is you have mitosis continually adding on new cells. These cells are typically small, 6-sided, and box-like with a large nucleus and tiny vacuoles. So an example of this is from an onion. You can see it has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. With the nucleus, and you can't even see the vacuoles. Okay, and then this is a meristem, apical meristem, where you can see this is where the mitosis is occurring at a rapid rate in a root. Alright, so apical meristems are found at the tips, the very edge, the outermost part of roots and shoots. Shoots are basically the continuation of stems, so growing stems, and roots, of course, are underground. Here you have a picture of a shoot where you have leaf growth, and then you have the extension of a stem. This is responsible for primary growth, so that means basically vertical growth, growing up into, towards the sky, I guess. And then also in the ground, the roots are extending further down into the ground. There are 3 separate layers. The protoderm, you can see that here, that's this green section. Okay, and this is where leaves are being added on. You have the ground meristem, which is the internal part of the root or shoot, and then this yellow part is the procambium, and this will become the cambium layers. Alright, so lateral meristems are then responsible for the growth of the girth, or the increase in the circumference of the roots or shoots. And this is called secondary growth. So it has to grow first vertically, and then it can grow outward. The vascular cambium, so this diagram I thought was nice. It shows this vascular cambium here, the green layer. And this is primarily for support and conduction, so conduction of water and of sugars. And this is mostly a cylinder of brick-shaped cells. The cork cambium then lies directly outside of that, superficial to that, and this is that dark brown layer here. And this produces the outer layer of bark. And this is a cylinder which is very thin. Alright, and then you have intercalary meristems. These are basically between the apical meristems, and they're found in the vicinity of nodes along the intervals of the stem. So a node would be, so a stem has a node and an internode between these nodes. You can see that on this, looks like bamboo shoots here. Here's the nodes, internode, another node. Now in the vicinity of the nodes, so right up next to them, you will find these intercalary meristems, and they will continue to grow and add length to the stem. So this is found in grasses and and related plants. Alright, so tissues produced by the meristems include parenchyma, which we saw in class when we looked at the potatoes. And these are mostly of parenchyma, or parenchyma cells, however you want to say it. They mostly function as food and water storage, and they have a live cytoplasm. So not all plant cells are alive at maturity. They're alive at some point, but some of them will die. Sclerenchyma are a specific type of parenchyma that have a lot of chloroplasts, so they can also photosynthesize. And these are also able to divide. If there is some sort of injury to the plant, they can also be a site of mitosis for tissue repair. Collenchyma are another type. They also have living cytoplasm, another type of cell produced by the meristem, and they provide support for growing and maturing organs and are generally thicker than the parenchyma. Okay, an example of this is the stringy parts found within your celery, which give the celery its structure. Alright, Sclerenchyma then is another type of tissue produced by the meristem, and they produce secondary cell walls with lignin. You can see they just have a little more structure than these other cells around them. And they are dead at maturity, meaning when they are alive as they are growing, but once they are mature, then they die, and they are just for structural support. Sclerids are one type of Sclerenchyma, one type of cell, and these are randomly distributed among other cells. An example is when you eat a pear, the grittiness of that pear, those are sclerids. And then fibers are also associated with tissues in different types of organs, such as roots, stems, leaves, and even in fruits. And they produce a tiny cavity or a lumen. And here's an example of fibers here. And you can see they have a little cavity within them. Alright, complex tissues. We have the xylem. This is basically the plumbing of the plant, where the water flows from the roots to the leaves. And they're a combination of parenchyma cells, fibers, vessels, tracheids, and ray cells. So tissues, by definition, are made by more than one type of cell. So those are the different types of cells in the xylem. They form these vessels, which are tubes which are connected by separate cells called vessel elements. And then tracheids are dead at maturity, and they have thick secondary walls and overlap with other tracheids, again making this tube of continual. So this is an example of some tracheids, and when they overlap, they will make this long tube throughout the plant. And then you have ray cells, which are for the lateral conduction of water and nutrients. So as a stem goes out laterally, you will have ray cells. Phloem then is how sugars and food is then transported throughout the plant. And they conduct, so the food, first usually it's sugar, is dissolved in a fluid which then is derived from the cambium. So sieve tube members are how, again, it's kind of like the plumbing. You do have overlapping elements, and sieve tube members form these long sieve tubes. And then you also have companion cells surrounding them, which help to conduct and coordinate the movement of the food. They are porous at the ends so that they can connect from cell to cell. The epidermis then, the outer layer of cells, is another complex tissue, usually one layer thick, and produces different types of structures, including the cuticle, which is found on leaves, which prevents desiccation, and that's a production of fatty acids. So it's a hydrophobic substance which will keep water in and prevent the evaporation of water. Some produce these small little hairs. Well, this is a leaf hair, but some produce root hairs, which increase the surface area of the root so they can absorb more water. Stomata are also produced by the epidermis, and these are pores on the surface of the leaves, which we have already seen under the microscope and you're doing a small experiment on. And they are surrounded by the guard cells, which can open and shut the stomata to allow carbon dioxide in or to keep water from escaping. Some of them also produce glands, which produce protective substances, or even substances which make the plant either untasteful for other things to eat, or may even produce a poison which affects things which may attack it. Trichomes, or small hairs, can also be produced, and that's what we have here. These can also help to, water can attach to those to keep water from being lost or to attract water. They can also prevent insects from getting to the more meaty parts of the leaf. Alright, periderm then is the bark, or the outer layer of the very woody substance on the outside of plants. And this replaces the epidermis when the cork cambium produces new tissues that increase the girth of the stem. Okay, so secondary growth. And these are made of box-like cells, which are dead at maturity. Okay, so that's not a live part of the plant. There are some things produced by this bark, including suberin, which is a fatty substance that protects the bark from water, cold, and injury. And they will sometimes go through small breaks in the bark where gas exchange can occur. So you have this lenticel here with suberin being produced out of it. But sometimes they are just small holes for gas exchange. Finally, we have secretory cells and tissues. These help get rid of waste products, may also produce things which attract pollinators, such as nectars or perfumes, and plant hormones can also be produced. Some examples include latex, the oils of citrus that give orange its orangey smell, or mints.